What mistakes do writers make when writing characters?
I think the mistakes that writers make when writing characters is that everybody kind of sounds like themselves, or just sounds, too flat, or that they put too much of the characterization into the description. And that's ultimately, just a tiny, tiny sliver of it. That comes so much from the dialogue and how they interact with people and what they say in response to a line. If somebody says, how was your day? And then they completely take it off topic, or, they fire back at them, or, it's the way in which these interactions happen. And I think ultimately film is about representing vitality and representing life. And so characters too should be, as engaging as possible and as fired up as possible. And I think sometimes it's maybe playing it a little bit too safe with certain characters, and having the freedom to, really go out there and really be bold.
Are there certain screenwriters who you love their dialogue, like whether it's understated or even like an Aaron Sorkin, where there's such a performance from each line? It's great to listen to.
Certainly, Aaron Sorkin is that. I mean, when anybody talks about dialogue, it's hard to not just zero in on him. And what's phenomenal about him is how the exposition can roll on and on and on, but you're still there, right? And he also, is so great at non sequiturs, and then sort of bringing it back home about why this particular story was important or why this was said, and the nuance to language that he brings with different characters, of why they say certain things and how it's crafted, is really, I think, something to be admired and studied.
What questions should a writer be asking themselves about their characters while they're writing it?
I think the one chief question writers should be asking themselves constantly is this true to life? Is this somebody I know? Is this reality? And then if there is another question, is this somebody I would want to spend time with for an hour and a half in a theater? It's and it could also be, there's so many ways to answer that. It could be like, well, they're kind of, a dumpster fire, but that could be entertaining, but then also weaving that in. You always have to look at it in sort of the gestalt of how does it interact with these other parts. So you obviously don't want to have somebody who's a complete villain, as you're trying to get audiences to empathize, or tell a story about somebody who's a hero, right? Those things just won't match. So it's also what's the intention with this character, and then is it somebody you would want to spend time with, and are they a real person that you could point to in the world?
Right. As young adult, she was sort of a dumpster fire for a while in the movie, and fascinating journey to be on that, and same leaving Las Vegas, Nicolas Cage's character.
Totally.
So there's some that are fascinating to watch, and there's others that are painful to watch, and it's like, this is maybe a little too much.
Yeah. I think the reason we're drawn to those types of characters is like often, the light is shining brightest before it goes out. And those are people really on the brink who are struggling struggling with their own inner demons. And so their behavior is just bombastic. And it's certainly something to watch.
How do you find out what a character wants?
I think in looking what a character wants, it's a really tricky question. And as a director, I always will do that with the actors, because we need to be in alignment, and ultimately I need them to be more connected to that than ultimately me, because that's what is a good performance. And I think that comes with writing down the facts of the script, and sometimes the character might directly tell you, or the director or the actor might lie, might say, I want this, and you can say, well, look at these other facts, right? He may say that he wants a good job, but he's showing up every day drunk, right? And so what is it that he does really want? And that is, I think, is finding the spine and asking those questions and kind of referencing them back to the facts in the script.
And you said that dialogue, you often let actors bring their own, like it doesn't have to be on the nose in terms of what the script is. And you feel that helps in terms of the believability, the chemistry?
Yeah, I'm always hiring actors who are bringing themselves. Doesn't mean they can't, play another character, but that they're bringing their own good ideas. And we will workshop things, and then we'll go back and rewrite the script based off of what they've said, or we'll do a rehearsal, or we'll do an improv, and something will come out, and I'll say, that is brilliant, that's going in, and I'll add it into the script. It really evolves, and that too is so helpful for actors when they're doing the scenes, because they really have a sense in which everything is alive, everything is changing, and everything there's things at stake. And so they need to be super engaged. They need to be listening to one another. And also that, if they get a wild hair, they're free to express it, and it's going to be welcome.
What techniques do you use to strengthen your characters?
The techniques I use to strengthen characters are, again, pointing to the real world. And again, doing that with the actors. But ultimately, in a script, I can only do so much. It's only real when it's on screen. And I really encouraged the actors to ask those questions and to have those conversations. And ultimately, it's for me, I know there's different things that are more playable and that will work in engaging a scene and making it feel more lively, or hitting specific plot points, or having the pacing be a certain way. And so I'll sort of, direct and mold things here and there. But it's the actor's job to really build that depth and really make it playable and to connect it and find a way to bring it to life on screen. That I think is solid script analysis, and we always spend a lot of time doing that, and it's really one of my favorite parts of the process, and it's so collaborative, and it's always a lot of fun. I really do love working with actors.
What character in a film that you've watched just really hits home for you, that it's so real that you're convinced that person lives somewhere, and some walk up in New York City or something?
I think certainly making characters that are more complex makes everything a lot more playable, and so that too, I'm more in writing. I'm really an advocate of finding where they just completely are, irrational, or where on paper you're like, that doesn't really make sense, but then there's that person, right? That just brings the complexity. I mean, J.J. Abrams so often is like, good narrative structure is about having a question, right? And whether it's a mystery or whether it's this, it's like that's what draws an audience in. And so I think if you have more complex characters, that it draws people in again. It's like, what does make this person tick? Certainly for me, it also has been sort of the most engaging characters I've seen on screen.
What was it about Jonah Hill's character in Wolf of Wall Street that really struck you?
I mean, so many of the characters in Wolf of Wall Street, whether it was Matthew McConaughey or Leo DiCaprio, I mean, I think it was everybody's obsession with wealth for wealth's sake. And I thought Scorsese handled it so well, that no character in that ever gets off easy. He even goes to such depths to show, well, this hooker and this trader, went off and got married, but it didn't end well. Like he literally went and showed that it did not end well, as just a moral story, like that this world does not lead to bliss, right? That this leads to despair, leads to suicide. And And that was fascinating, watching all of those characters explore that, where that emanated from, how it was this sort of constantly perpetuating cycle, and certainly the glitz around it that made it feel worthwhile.